All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Okay, so what is today? Is today August 20th? Wow, it is almost the end of summer. We're getting there fast. We're back for Product Coffee. Welcome. We are going to talk today about training, upskilling, and certification. See, product management has come a long way over the last 20 years, but the way we learn it is still all over the place. Some people swear by certifications and structured programs. Others say the only way to really learn it is by doing the job and screwing things up a few times. So we're going to dive in. And we're going to ask the question, what's the real state of training and learning in product management today, and is formal upskilling worth it? Let's introduce our panel, first of all. First up, let's welcome, if Henry David Thoreau had swapped Walden Pond for product roadmaps, you'd get Allison Herbert from Milliken Company. Welcome back, Allison.
Thanks, everyone.
Up next, we have the godfather of product management training, Steve Johnson from Product Growth Leaders. Welcome, Steve. And this guy is the product coach who pre-games the pregame. Give it up for Jerry Odenwelder from cPrime. Welcome, Jerry. And up
Thank
next,
you.
CPTO by day, knee surgery nurse by night. Welcome, Aakash Shah from My Home Pathway. Welcome back, Aakash. All right. So let's dive into it. Allison, let's start with you. When you think about how you built your product management career, what role did structured training play versus figuring it out on the fly?
Yeah, that's a great first question, Jason. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Softball.
Stru- Structured training has been not necessarily the first place I went in my career. So I'm a career switcher. I did not do this. I'm the baby, I think, maybe in experience years on the board today. But coming to product management, at first I didn't know that it was that, didn't know that it was called that. I was already doing the role in a couple of different places and spaces. So it took doing a little bit of that on the job training work, which we know is right where the rubber meets the road, the mistakes happen, the deep learnings happen, and then finding where I had gaps in my own skill set. So I'm not familiar with a specific area. I need to be more technical. Perhaps I have an interest around data. Public speaking was another one for me. Presenting and facilitating was another one for me. And so I leaned in on those to say, I want a structured training around that particular area. And then I've layered that in over time. I did recently do a certification last year. That was more of a need for me than it was for my profile or my career. But I think that's been my approach to date. And I think it's, for me, it's been a mix when you need it and where it makes sense to add value to what you deliver as a product person has been the most helpful for me.
All right. Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Jerry, you're a coach. So what do you see most often in product managers today? Are they undertrained? Are they over certified? Something else? What are you seeing?
It's a good question. I'm going to first thank you for letting Allison go first. Then I'm going to give you the consultant answer. It depends, but I do mean that kind of seriously because I go into some organizations where it feels like they're undertrained. They don't, they don't even have the basics. So, you kind of have to take a step back before you can move forward. But then I go into other places where, I've got people on the call who have like 8 or 10 acronyms after their title, and it's just like, what are you a collector there? Like, you're like, what do you do? And sometimes I wonder, like, I don't know that it's always about the training. I think it's more about like what you do with it after you get it. If I go and sit in a class and maybe I check out, right? Camera off, and I'm just kind of, vacuuming while I'm listening. I might be able to take the test and get the certification, but did I really get anything out of the training class? And then if I don't use it afterwards, have I really gotten anything at all except for that acronym after my name? I'm going to say it's a blend of undertrained and over-certified. I think there's a huge mix out there, but then I'm going to stress that it's what you do with it after you come out of that class, what you put into that class, that actually determines, was it even worth your investment or the company's investment in some cases.
I think that's a real key. It's not just about reading the book, reading the blog, learning the idea. It's about how can you put it to use, because the real wisdom comes with actual experience. So That's
Yeah.
a great call out. So, and at the same, slightly different angle from you, Akash, you're a pretty senior leader, chief product and technology officer. You've been CPO at a couple places. You've had a pretty good storied career. So you do a lot of hiring. And when you're thinking about that, when you're looking at a resume, when you're looking at a candidate, are you looking at certifications? Are you looking at experience? Is there a blend? What is it that you're thinking about?
Yeah, and I think the answer similar to Jerry, it depends. So if you're new in your career, let's say less than 5 years of experience, oftentimes certification is probably the best indicator of your training. So things like if, have you done Lean Six Sigma? Have you taken any kind of product courses, design thinking courses? Some of those kind of come to mind. Or even there are colleges that actually offer certification in product management. Those matter when you're lacking experience, because then it gives you at least an idea that you've done this on a theoretical basis and to some degree maybe applied it in a small practical environment. But I think ultimately experience matters because, I was thinking about this when you prepped me for this question, is product management is one of those ultimate merit-based professions. Your customers will fire you if you suck, and your customers will promote you if you're great. And if you're great, you're not going to stay great for very long because customers evolve, their expectations evolve, and so you'll have to continuously keep innovating, right? It's entirely merit-based because you can't really talk your way through it. You can't really pitch your way through it. Your numbers will show if the product works or not. And that experience is pretty valuable when you're hiring someone. Have they failed? Have they evolved from a success? Because sometimes you ride a success for so long, you become a failure later because everyone else copied you, it's commoditized, and your product is no longer interesting or innovative, and you're not growing at the same pace. So I think experience matters. It sharpens your judgment. It sharpens, if you've been through the trenches a few times, you know that where the pains are, growing pains and pains at scale. I think all of that ultimately lends you to a candidate who can replicate that in your work environment, right? So to me, yes, certifications matter, but to some degree, right? How have you applied it? How have you evolved with it? That truly matters. And majority of the hires that I've done, I think in the last, say, 5 years have been more on the senior side. And so I typically look for their judgment calls, their results, their decision-making skills, how they treat others, how they work with others, how they work in complex environments. A lot of that is hard to find in certifications, but even leadership training, I think that goes a long way. I think that's
It almost makes me, both you and Jerry specifically talked about that experience and being merit based in general. I wonder if we should just have product management merit badges. The
yes,
big sash,
maybe we should.
14 product launches. Just
right.
wear it to
That's
your
right.
interview right there. There you go. So
Should be awarded by the customers. Should be awarded by them.
Yep. This
Challenge
I
point
love
for
that
product
too. This question came up because I get inbound questions into Product Coffee all the time. People asking, what should I go take? What should I go study to accelerate my career, to move up in my career? And so we're really lucky to have Steve with us here today. And Steve, you've been really shaping product education for a long time. So tell me how the value of formal education, certifications, especially looking at today with so many options for self-guided learning, how has the value of certification and formal training really shifted in the marketplace in your view, from what you're seeing? I'm going to need to get some sound from you, Steve.
I think certification for a long time has been something more of interest to the participant and their HR department than it has to hiring managers. And for what it's worth, the first product manager I hired did not have college. And my boss was pretty upset about it. And I went, dude, college was 10 years ago. He's got 10 years of actual experience doing real work. I couldn't care less if he passed Western Civ. And so, to kind of amplify the other comments about experience, I mean, experience is what we're all really looking for. That said, to repeat kind of, or to amplify what Jerry said, I do run into a lot of teams who have had zero training and they don't know the basics. They don't know how to write a persona or how to interview or how to talk to somebody, how to present their information to stakeholders. And because everybody is self-taught, they've all learned from a different source. I worked with one company where everybody on the product team had come to that company straight out of college. And so they had all sorts of terrible habits that were that company's norm. And they didn't know any better because nobody had ever worked anywhere else. But what I encounter when I'm doing training is everybody in the room has gone to a different training course or read a different book. And so it creates a chaos, in other words. But some stats for you. I saw there was a survey last year, 41% of product managers have had some form of professional training. And the majority of that is SAFe and Scrum. So in other words, most people have not had training of any kind, but of that 40%, only 20% have actually had training in product management, because Scrum and SAFe are not product management training. That's development training, that's delivery training. So what I really enjoy is working with not just individuals on learning, but learning as a team, seeing how not only is that a great theory or whatever, but how will it work here in this organization? So that said, experience is super, reading is super, but one thing I would really, I'm sorry, to answer the actual question, I don't think anybody cares about certification, but as Aakash pointed out, if you don't have any experience, certification's a nice substitute to get there. But then I also don't really think of product management as an entry-level position. You don't go straight out of college into product management. You need to get some experience first.
Yet we're seeing a lot of companies hiring product managers right out of college and putting them through a boot camp and saying, here, you're now a product manager. And a lot of college students are hearing, hey, product management's a great career path. I want to go that route. So I agree with you. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not for inexperience, but there's certainly lots of interesting pathways in there. Allison, you've got your hand up, being so polite and stuff instead of just jumping in.
It also is everything I have to remember how to find where to raise my hand in this tool. So extra points there. I'm under-degreed just by my education experience, and so I would also say that as a career switcher, I used those structured training or formal trainings as a way to fill in those gaps. I'm a continual learner. I'm going to choose learning every time, and so that's something that's going to be part of me and how I show up as an employee. But I also think like how you get it, to Steve and Jerry and Akash's point, is not necessarily titled up in a pretty fancy MBA or a CSPO or whatever whatever the other all the letters that go after the names. That to me doesn't mean anything. In fact, it's probably more confusing for just as a person. Can you do the work, and how well are you at executing on that work consistently, I think is right. Can you get value out of the courses that help you do that? Take tools aside. Y'all know, here's a shameless plug for, reading from the book club aspect. I know that has added value in my career, even just today and recently, like being able to take things that we've read and then apply them, talk about them with others, find out how others are using them, has been more valuable than I sat in a class for a week or however long, 6 weeks, and got a degree, or 4-year degree, and I don't use it. It's a piece of paper on the wall. So.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's a common pattern that I've seen as well. Blossom, you've got your hand up. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and jump in?
Hi, everyone. My name is Blossom Odenwelder. I am a product manager, and I love this conversation because I actually got into product management through self-study. I've recently been learning different ways on how to, I guess, make myself more appealing in the market. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on about MBAs and if they do any type of insulation when it comes to layoffs. Like, are you protected if you have an MBA or additional letters after your name, or does that not matter?
So
Mike,
I have an MBA. I've been laid off 3 times. So it clearly doesn't have any insulation on it. But I will tell you the positive side of it. So there's no insulation to layoffs, no matter where you are, because ultimately the company will do what's right for the company. And if it turns out that you're in the wrong role, you're at the wrong time, you might be affected by it. And this is sort of the unfortunate risk of having a career. I've been laid off in companies where I was top performer, had like empirical evidence of it, and it didn't really matter. What MBA does buy, though, there is a level of rigor and training that you get in the MBA program that is appreciated by a lot of different roles that you'll apply to, or someone's hiring for. I actually know of leaders who've leaned towards taking out resumes that don't have MBAs for certain specific roles. So it is a good training. It is a nice way to express that you have certain set of skills. And I think you might get a leg up on maybe another candidate who doesn't have it in some specific settings. So I think it is actually a good, rigorous training to be part of, and obviously a graduation, but you won't have any insulation, unfortunately, from layoffs. Now, I don't know if anybody else agrees with that or not, but I haven't found any insulation from layoffs.
I can say from my experience, and I've been with some very large enterprises and some smaller companies as well, and I am not aware of a single situation where a credential such as an MBA or some specific course that I'd trained or certification that I had or someone else had insulated them from a reduction in force. Reductions in force are driven by numbers, and they're driven by where can we retain the most value and save the most money. And so it's more so your MBA might get you in the door, but it's your performance that keeps you there, and it's the value that you create that keeps you there relative to where you happen to be at any given moment is the view that I've seen. Steve, you got a view.
Well, yeah, I'd say at least a third of product managers do have an MBA. And as Wes pointed out in the chat, I've worked with people who have MBAs who are brilliant. And guess what? I've worked with people with MBAs who aren't brilliant. It doesn't necessarily protect you. But if I'm looking at two candidates who seem the same on paper, it is likely that a hiring manager would skew towards the MBA. But as you said, it gets you in the door, maybe. But the other benefit is people with an MBA tend to make 10% more money than people without an MBA. So over the course of 10 years, maybe you'll get your MBA money back. So, I'm certainly not opposed to an MBA. My daughter has one, but I don't. And I think I'm as smart as she is, almost.
She's smarter than you. That's what she said anyway.
That's great. So I'd love to invite anybody else who has a comment or a question or a thought on this topic to chip in with it. Let me give you my personal view has been, and it's evolved a lot over the years. I used to say very clearly, certification doesn't matter at all. It's the learning and whether you can actually put the learning to use that matters. And largely to a degree, I kind of still feel the same way, with a slight evolution to that. From what I've seen in the marketplace is people, as a general rule, if I see a string of certifications behind your name, I'm like Jerry. I'm like, okay, are you a collector? How are you actually proving value? What I really like about a lot of different certifications that are out there is that they, in a team and an organizational environment, going back to what Steve said a minute ago, you'll see one person read this book, one person had that class, and so you got a bunch of people with some generally good ideas, but they don't have a common framework for how they're working, and you end up with a bunch of chaos and debate about how we're going to do things. What I really like about a certification program, especially in a team environment, is putting a foundation in place that gives everybody the same language and the same way of thinking about working through a problem and communicating it. And there's some really good frameworks out there for lots of different things. I mean, Aakash mentioned Lean Six Sigma a few minutes ago. That is a fantastic approach in thinking about quality. And there's no shortage. Steve, you spend a lot of time with the Quartz framework for product management. Gives a process and a map for thinking through a product process that you can work with a team on, so that you're all working with the same vocabulary, the same way of thinking about things, but you can still plug your individual experience into that. So I think certifications are really valuable when you're trying to work into an organization that is working in a specific way already. It shows, hey, I already have the vocabulary that you're using. It's not practical to go get everyone. So when in the absence of that, it's really valuable, as Steve said earlier, when you're early in your career and you just need to credentialize yourself so that you can say, hey, I've at least learned the lessons even if I don't have the experience. Or if there's some new technology or new trend that's really important. AI is a great place where going out and having some study when you haven't had the real practical experience to say, I can at least demonstrate that I've learned some stuff and I've done some test projects or some test products to create some level of experience is really helpful in your career growth. And doing so in commonly accepted frameworks is even more valuable because that kind of amplifies the experience. That's kind of my growth in learning. So I'm not anti-certification like I used to be. I'm more for formal training, but in ways that can be easily replicated and shared so that you can create common vocabulary.
Yeah, and I think, Jason, one thing I wanted to share was specifically building on like lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
Any interview process that I've seen that I've been either part of as a candidate or part of as an interviewer, one of the things that they try to tap into is, do you have the capacity and have you demonstrated it before of learning lessons from your experience? Because ultimately what that does, it gives you better judgment. Your judgment improves each time you learn a lesson and you've reapplied it and you learn another lesson, etc. And frankly, it doesn't matter how much the technology evolves, and AI has disrupted so much of product management in so many ways, and it's even blending like the design, development, engineering and product management roles all together, because you can kind of like vibe code and kind of replace some of the development work, but developers can do product management. But nothing replaces good judgment, because for you to understand what the customer is looking for, what do they need, what's the market fit, that's judgment calls. And are you learning from it? Do you know how to translate that insight into a product that people will actually pay for, use it, and pay for it even more later? I think that's so invaluable. And frankly, it's the number one thing I look for is are you good at critiquing your own past and what you could have done better?
Yep.
Hey, Jason, did you see John Cutler's article yesterday on LinkedIn? Oh, sorry, Steve, you had your hand up. My apologies. I'll stop. Go.
I was just going to say very quickly that to summarize what Aakash just said, one of my favorite recruiting books was by Joel Spolsky called Smart and Get Things Done.
Yeah.
And that's what I look for.
Yep.
Yeah.
It didn't say book smart and get things done.
Just smart. Heavy on the get things done. And you were going to say, Jerry, real quick?
All I was going to say, when you talked about having consistency of language across team, John's article yesterday was on what he called minimum viable consistency, and what he talks about across many areas, but the importance of having a consistency throughout your organization. Terminology was one of the big things he calls out, processes and approaches as well.
And that comes up in every sales call I'm on. The CPO will say, what we really need is a common set of tools, a common vocabulary, a way of working together as a team. And so without repeating my whole earlier thing, it's like there's a team aspect here that's really important, as opposed to sending individuals all over the place getting them all together and learning how to talk with one another.
So important.
I'm going to welcome to the forefront Sam Young-Woloshinsky, who has been one of our award-winning presenters at Product Camp, has been presenting at Product Camps almost every year that I can remember since she started coming, and has led some fantastic sessions. And Sam is going to be walking us through today and kind of facilitating this ideas jam to think about the types of things you might be inspired to create a session around for Product Camp or some other conference. So I'm going to just hand it over to Sam at this point and say, Sam, welcome back. Great to see you again. You can take it away.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jason. Hey, everyone. It's so exciting to be talking about Product Camp. It's just around the corner. And part of what I wanted to share today was some space to get some ideas cooking. It can be kind of intimidating if you've never presented before to even know where to start. So this is hopefully a good time to kick things off. And I love that we started with a first cup discussion about professional development, in part because Product Camp is an amazing opportunity for professional development, not just to meet people, but to learn from their lived experience and build community with them. It's definitely been that for me. So with that said, I want to just getting a quick feel for the room. So I wonder how many people have been to Product Camp before. You can either say in the chat or you can react with emojis. Okay, I'm seeing lots of hands and thumbs up go up. Okay, so my take so far is that we have a mixed crowd. We have maybe some people that have never been before. Is that right? Okay, so just to give you an overview, Product Camp is an unconference, which means that the sessions and speakers are not planned in advance, and we as a community get to decide what we want to share with each other, what we're interested in learning. And so how it works is anyone can pitch a topic, can pitch a session that they want to lead at the beginning of the day, and then people vote to say, oh, I want to learn about that. And then that's how we build our lineup of speakers. And then we have all these great sessions. So, okay, next question is, who is interested or possibly interested in pitching a session? I'm guessing most people on this call, since that's sort of what this is about. But it's okay if people are a little shy. Okay. And anyone a little nervous about how to figure out what topic you want to present on? Yeah, very normal. Okay, so what I want to start us off with is I'm going to drop a link into the chat for a Miro board. Jason, can you help me just make sure this is the correct shareable link? And you can go ahead and jump into that board. And we're going to just do a quick warm up. You can do it on the board, or if you happen to be on a phone and it's hard to open it, you can always share your responses in the chat or just raise your hand, say them out loud. So our quick warm up is going to be, imagine that you could time travel and talk to your younger self. Yeah, Jason, would you help me get the board open? And then I'll give a prompt while we're doing that. So imagine that you're time traveling and you're talking to a younger version of yourself that's earlier in your career. What is one piece of advice you wish you could give your younger self? So we're just going to do a little warm up to get our creative juices flowing. And you can drop it in the board or you can drop it in the chat.
I'm working on getting the board opened up for everybody. Miro has changed their UI, so.
All right, so for the warm up, we'll just go in the chat then. Okay, I see Allison says, do it even if it scares you.
It's a very fun chat if you think about Jerry's comments and mine sandwiched together.
And Jerry immediately says, don't do that. What else we got?
I just always chuckle when I get that question, Sam, because it's like, I would tell my younger self, don't do that. Do something else.
Yeah, the question is, what's a piece of advice you would give to your younger self earlier in your career? I think we may have the right board link now. Nilima says, don't shy away from something because you don't know exactly what it means. No one really knows what product management is yet. Love it. Mike says, respect the team. Not in it alone, for sure. All right, Steve says the new link is working. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and jump in. Blossom says, get a therapist and a coach. So don't do it alone. Get some help, get some support to grow. Faith says, focus on skills and achievement more than ideals. Keep a journal of accomplishments, employment and salary history, etc. Good advice. Allison says, and a network to challenge you. Absolutely.
I think that was meant for Blossom's comment, but I hope y'all caught that. It went too fast on the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right, so we're gonna jump into the board now. And a lot of times when people are trying to figure out what topic they want to share at Product Camp, they start thinking to themselves, okay, what do I know enough about that I could share? And I want to encourage us to flip this idea around